At this time, I'd like to call the August 2nd, 2016 regular scheduled meeting of the Davie County Board of Education to order. If you would, please bow with me for the invocation. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, nurture the bonds of community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that might affect our great county, and continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish is for the pursuit of truth for the greater glory of you and for the service of humanity. We ask these things in your name. Amen. At this time, I will ask Boy Scout Troop 1525 to come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate you coming today and sharing the pledge with us. At this time, we're moving on to section of our meeting where we adopt the agenda, and I will ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. We have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Owens. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on now, I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes from our regular scheduled meeting of July the 12th. Do we have a motion? We have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Livengood. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. At this time, I will point out some important dates for us in August and the first part of September. Let's see. So we're going to have some of these I pointed out last month, so I'll hit the highlights. I guess the biggest thing is early college. First day of school for early college is on the 8th. And then we have 24th, we have some freshman orientation, some open houses for 6th grade. The 25th, have some open houses for elementary schools and Davie High. On the 26th, for all the staff, we have at Davie High, in the Davie High Gymnasium, we have the convocation at 8:30. And then on the 29th, all the other schools in the district will start to school on Monday the 29th. I know everyone's looking forward to that. And our next meeting will be here in the boardroom, but the difference at the next meeting, we're going back to our fall schedule with a 6 p.m. start date or start time versus the summer schedule with a 4 p.m. start. And I think that's all I have for now. I will turn it over to Dr. Hartness for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see you out at our board meeting this afternoon. It's been just a couple weeks since we met, and it is fast and furious preparing for school to start. As Mr. Fuller said, we have early college starting next Monday, the 8th. All of our other students will arrive on the 29th. We just closed out another successful Read to Achieve camp. There's a lot of activities that have been going on in our schools over the summer. I know Ms. Noelle Grady-Smith will be giving you an update on Read to Achieve here in the next few weeks or next month maybe. Last week, we held our annual administrative retreat at First Baptist Church Moxville here in town. For 2 days, we spent time together with our administrative leadership across the district and had some great quality time together. So it's a time of planning and preparing for another school year. Things are going really well, and we're looking forward to school starting. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Hartness. At this time, we're moving on to our construction project update, and I will ask Mr. Moorfield to come up and give us an update on the high school project.
Good afternoon. Like Dr. Hartnett said, it hasn't been long since we've been here, has it? But we seem to have gotten a lot accomplished at the site in the last few weeks. And if we could have the pictures up on the overhead and then the lights, we'll talk about some of these things. Do I need to do something? Now we're ready. The photo that you're looking at is the is the berm behind the home side of the football stadium, and we're placing, or the contractor is placing the ballast on that berm for erosion control under the future bleachers. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Vulcan Materials for their participation in this project. They saved us a lot of money, and we're grateful for their being across the road and being part of our project. And our second picture is taken from a long way off, but it is the segment A of the classroom building. And those guys are about 60 feet above the ground, putting the metal roof on the segment A classrooms. And that is complete, and for all practical purposes, the classroom building is dried in from rain. We're getting some in the stair towers, some water in the stair towers, but that's not affecting the classrooms. And as we'll talk a little bit later, that is making some changes on what we're doing in the classroom. And on our next photo, didn't mean to show a ditch witch, but if you recall, when this project was developed, the middle school provides the data connection to the high school. And that has been taking place this summer. So when the students, staff come back to North Davie, all of this will be in place, and then when the high school opens, it will be basically transparent to them as we put the cable from one school to the other and make those connections. I just wanted to give you some indication of the size of the auditorium. It looks a whole lot bigger when you get the metal roof structure on top of that building. And I'm standing taking this photo at the entrance door, and those electricians look extraordinarily small. And our last picture, the football stadium with the irrigation, and we have grass. It is not completely covered, but it is coming up and green. So we're looking forward to having a nice stand of grass before the winter months hit us, and we're real pleased with that. It's one of those milestones that we've worked hard to get to. And the practice field has been graded and should be seeded this week. And with the rain that's in the forecast and the warm temperatures, we expect the germination there to take place very quickly. Although we're behind schedule, but we'll make the best of it. And they have started work on the baseball field also. It's going to be a little bit later. The good thing, I guess, about the baseball field is that it will not receive a lot of student participation or activities until spring ball starts. So that's somewhat of a help to us. And the other thing, if you recall the site plan, there is an access road around the rear of the building that goes to the CTE building where cafeteria deliveries will be made, that type of thing. We have approximately 1/2 of that road in place, and the first lift of asphalt is on that road. And Farmington Road, don't know if you've been by the school site, but Farmington Road the widening process is complete, and the next phase of that will be the final asphalt overlay, and then the striping for traffic control. And like we indicated at the last meeting, that shouldn't be a problem for the opening of the middle school. And masonry block is almost complete. It is, the number of masons on the site are decreasing as they are completing the masonry block. But the brick veneer is going up very rapidly. The building is changing, taking on a whole new complexion because we're not seeing the gray block anymore, and we're looking at the brick, and it's a very aesthetically pleasing facility now. The interior of the classroom building seems to be changing almost every day, and block walls are being readied for paint, and drywall is in place, sanded, and is being painted also. So the classrooms are taking shape very quickly. The architect or WRCP, their field inspector, and myself are working with New Atlantic, and we're establishing basically 2 sample rooms in the classroom for quality. And everything going forward will have to meet that level of quality for those classrooms. So what we're trying to do is say, okay, guys, we'll take you back to those 2 classrooms that we approved, and you were able to get to the right level of quality, and if it doesn't match, you get to do it again. So practice makes perfect. And New Atlantic is beginning to pay some attention to the exterior of the facility, because as we speak, fall seating is right around the corner. And they are working to get a lot of the site ready for seating this fall. The part that will be the latest and will receive the seating probably right at the end of the seating season will be the front parking area for staff, visitor parking, as we work around the building. But everything else is on the exterior is beginning to take shape. And we should, hopefully with decent weather, we'll have the road completed to the staff parking lot, the access road around the building by probably toward the end of this month. So that is a good sign, because that means that we're getting rid of all of that exterior equipment that keeps making it muddy. Is there any questions? Yes, sir.
I have one for you. Can
Okay.
you go backwards on the picture and get to the one where the foundations for the bleachers were there?
Sure.
You were thanking Vulcan Materials for something there. You used some words that I didn't catch. What will the finished surface under the bleachers be?
Stone. It will be, this is what's referred commonly as railroad ballast. But it will be the stone that you're looking at in the photo. It will be hard to see, because the bleachers are pretty much enclosed to meet ADA, OSHA regulations.
That's where I was going with my questions, because all the cups and snack drinks and paper is going to go down.
Some of that's going to end up there regardless. You can't prevent all of it. But this basically is for erosion control.
I have one quick question, and you may have actually said this, and you and I have not talked about this as of yet. The staff parking, I know they're working on the road and paving around to the staff parking. When are they planning on working on the staff parking? Do they have a schedule on it yet? Or I know they've really been using it for lay down and brick and block, and I guess they'll have to get the bulk of that out of the way.
I don't know that I have a specific date that I can give you. It's basically the evolution of working out of the site, and that front area where is the admin, dance, art, performing arts, auditorium is where they will be working out of that site.
Okay.
And into the bus lot.
Okay.
And the student parking area is scheduled to be paved as late as possible this fall. And then that will eliminate as much damage as
To
possible
the
for
parking lot.
that. And then all of the workers, that type of thing, will be using that. Bus lot will be used for staging, lay down. But they have to work out of that, have to have a way to work out of that building.
Right,
And that's
right.
our last area that we're coming out of. So,
I was just curious about that.
any other comments, questions?
I tell you, if you haven't been out by the site, it's worth a drive. I was out by there today, and it's really taking shape. I mean, you watched the kind of the evolution of that. I mean, the brick moving around the building, the windows being put in, the window frames. I mean, it's actually taking shape and really going from the gray block look to you're starting to see the look of the finished product, and it really is. It's going to be something for community to be proud of.
And 1 year from now, I won't be here, you'll be planning that dedication service.
Well, we appreciate all your hard work. We do. Have any other questions? Thank you, Jim. At this time, we're moving on to the consent agenda, and I will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
There's a personnel, that you talked to me, can we approve the agenda without talking about the change, or is it not in?
So we have a motion by Ms. Livengood. We have a second. We have a second by Mr. Drexler. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, you approved in the consent agenda and the personnel report an addendum, and that addendum includes the new principal for William Ellis Middle School. So I'd like to introduce Ms. Lee Walters. Lee, could you stand up and welcome her as our new principal? Lee's husband, Tony, is with her, and her son, Michael. We welcome you. I heard that Michael is a student at Appalachian State University. That makes it even better. Go Mountaineers. And we have some other guests, too. As well. Her sister is with her as well. Lee, we welcome you. Lee is coming to us. She has been, for the last 5 years, an administrator at Wiley Magnet Middle School and Forsyth County Schools. She spent 10 or 11 years at Thomas Jefferson Middle School in Forsyth County. She also had experience at Forsyth Country Day School. A lot of experience in middle school, and going to be a great part of our team, so we welcome her and look forward to her leadership at William Ellis Middle School. So welcome, Lee.
Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Hartness. We're glad you're on board. Glad to have you. At this time, we're moving on to the business items, and the first item on our business agenda is the 2016-17 early college calendar amendments, and I will ask Mr. Wallace to talk to us about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board, I want you to know I'm taking a bold step here and going ahead and getting our calendar amendments out of the way in August. So I'm going to predict this will be it, right? Okay.
No snow.
No snow, except on Saturday and early Sunday. Late Friday, early Sunday. Ms. Absher and her staff had put together a calendar, but when we began to compare, we felt like we could make some minor modifications to better align her calendar with the traditional calendar. And as we try to work through shuttle buses, some cost savings. So as they're presented here, again, they're minor changes. And just ask that you would, I'll be glad to take any questions or anything, but ask that you approve this the amended early college high school calendar.
Okay, so we have recommendation to approve the amendments to the early college calendar. Do we have a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Do we have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. At this time, we're moving on to the second item on our business agenda, and that is air quality presentation for New Davie County High School and for North Davie. And I guess I'll ask Mr. Spillman to come up, talk to us about that, and then, or Dr. Hartness, do you have any comments about that first?
Yeah, I would just take this opportunity first to say thank you to Jim Moorfield for being our project manager on the new Davie High School. Jim reminded me a few minutes ago that he won't be with us as part of our team next year, and that's going to be sad for us because we've gotten to know Jim, and he's done a tremendous job overseeing this project. Another role and responsibility he had was attending some of our board meetings on a regular basis, and last night he attended a county commissioners meeting along with Mr. Spillman and presented to them the same thing that they presented to you last month or in July, on July the 12th. And he and Michael did a great job of outlining what solutions had been identified. And guys, do you have any updates or any changes in the solution or any progress on the Pine Brook project that we approved last time?
Dr. Hart's, Chairman Fuller, Board. The PO has been purchased and the equipment is on order. So it's scheduled to be here within probably 3 or 4 more weeks. So we plan on having this installed before school starts with that. And that's about the only update I can give you on that. We have 2 more units to set at Pine Brook through the capital outlay funding that we had. It's scheduled to be set Friday, actually. So, but I was asked to get a price for the plasma, the GPS system for North Davie Middle School. And that quote come in at $74,876. And would you have any more questions about that portion of it?
And I believe I sent that to the board, a summary of the 3 projects, so you have that. If I could, I'll just give an overview of the discussion at the commissioners' meeting last night, and then I think the board needs to talk and discuss and talk about our next steps. Mr. Moorfield and Mr. Spillman did present on behalf of the school board last night the request to fund the 3 projects, the Pine Brook that you've already given the green light on, and then the funding for North Davie Middle School and the new Davie County High School and the rationale for those. We also heard last night at the commissioners' meeting a presentation or a conversation with 2 folks from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, traditionally been known as DENR. It's now Department of Environmental Quality, NCDEQ. That was Tony Gallagher and Jason Watkins, and they were there on behalf of their agency to talk about the complaints and concerns they had had about commercial composting in Davie County and the things that they were doing to work with those composting facilities to address the concerns of the neighbors and the schools. They indicated the Wallace facility must be addressed quickly, immediately, and that they were out at both the composting facilities, or supposed to be out there today, monitoring and having compost piles turned and looking at both of those processes for both of those facilities. Eric Wallace, the owner of Wallace composting facility, spoke last night and asked to speak and took responsibility for the situation that he had created and said that he knew how to address it. He had addressed it at his other facility in Huntersville, and if he does all the things that he says he will do, then it will be much better for Pine Brook and for the community. So I hope Mr. Wallace will stand firm on what he said he would do last night. The state officials did confirm that both the composting facilities in Davie County have permits with the state, They're both type 3 permits, and in state regulations, there's 4 types of permits. And so these, both the composting facilities, the one behind the Davie High School and the one near Pine Brook, can accept the same types of materials. The one behind the high school accepts a smaller volume of materials, but can accept the same types of materials as the Wallace facility near Pine Brook. So they are looking at the situation. There were standing room only, a crowd of folks that are neighbors in that area that are concerned about the odors that have been created by these facilities. And we have one owner who's now stepped up and said he's going to address the issue. So I think where we are is we have made our request to the commissioners. The commissioners heard our request, and they indicated that in the month of September at their meeting that they would be voting on our request. And in conversations with the county manager wants to get more information from their audit from this summer to determine what resources that they might have available to assist in these 3 projects. So I think the Board of Education now has to give staff some direction on these 2 other projects and how we might want to address the 2 other projects. And what I would like to do is walk through, if technology could switch over to my computer on the screen, I'd like to walk through what funds are available that we're looking at. Last night, one of our commissioners talked about resources that were available to the public schools, to Davie County schools, and I'm going to pass around. The county manager sent me this summary this morning. Do we have enough there? I don't know if I passed enough of those around there, Mr. Fuller. This is a summary that the commissioners were looking at last night, and this was provided to them by the county staff. And I wanted to provide some clarification for you on these numbers, because if you just go by what was provided to county commissioners by the county staff, you see down there total potential funding sources of a little over $4 million, and that's not exactly accurate. Those are some numbers, but there's some explanation behind those. And if we'll look up to the screen, I'll go over our actual numbers, and I have you a copy of what is up on the screen I'll give you as well. But if we can kind of point our attention to the screen, I'll go over what we have in fund balance for capital projects. I know on the commissioner's list there was current expense fund balance, but current expense is for operations. It's not for capital projects like what we're talking about here. There was a number on the commissioner's number of $1,341,913 in North Carolina lottery funds. That is a current balance. We have some projects outlined for this school year that will take from that fund. For example, in your capital outlay budget that you approved $280,000 in lottery projects for 2016-17. That was the gym flooring at Shady Grove Elementary School and a roof at William R. Davie Elementary School. As we outlined when we first started the construction of Davie County High School and discussed the funding, the Board of Education would be responsible for $2 million of lottery funds up front before the school opened. We've already taken $1.5 million of lottery funds and committed to the project, and our next installment of that is due in March of 2017, where we'll take another $500,000 drawdown from the lottery funds toward the Davie County High School project. So if you take those 2 things that are already committed, that takes the lottery balance down to just over $500,000. Starting in 2017-18, our other commitment was that we would take annually $200,000 from our lottery funds toward debt service for the new high school. So you need to factor that in as you're looking at what our lottery balances are, is we've got $200,000 a year committed starting next school year, fiscal year July 1st, 2017. The revenue estimate for 2015-16 was $428,000. That's approximately what we receive in lottery funds for capital. We do not yet have an estimate for 16-17 based on changes in the legislature. I don't know and anticipate big changes to this, but it's still going to be between $400,000 and $500,000. That's what we anticipate at least. So that gives you an idea of what lottery funds are available. If we were going to do air quality, solutions and use lottery funds to do that, we would need to get permission from the state and talk with them about that. In capital outlay, if we were to use lottery funds for these air quality projects, we would need to get permission from the state to do that. That's not something we've ever requested, so we'd need permission from the state to use lottery funds for that. Capital outlay fund balance estimate as of June 16 is about $990,000. That's not on what was given to the commissioners. That's actually what we have in reserve or in fund balance from sales tax revenues that we use for repair and maintenance of our schools. So that's in our reserves for emergencies dealing with capital outlay. If you look at capital outlay sales tax revenue, the number we had was just a little bit different than what the county had reported from their numbers, but we've already approved $1.37 million in projects for 2016-17. When you adopted the budget and Deborah presented the budget, we had outlined technology projects and other repairs and maintenance to the schools in the 16-17 budget. So those funds are already committed to other projects. As we reported in June, and we report quarterly, the contingency remaining on the high school project as of June 16 is just under $900,000. Those funds are specific to the new high school. We anticipate that we will use these funds on the remainder of the high school as part of contingency as things come up over the next year through the remainder of the construction process. I had a couple folks ask me, well, how are capital outlay funds used? So I gave you some examples here of how we use capital outlay funds. For example, lottery projects. Over the past several years, we've used lottery money for roof replacements, new paving projects, HVAC replacements. We used some for the tennis courts at North Davie Middle School. I think that may have been right before or right after I became your superintendent. We've done flooring replacements, restroom renovations, and some covered walkways. And then you're familiar with the other capital outlay projects that we do from sales tax revenue because that's in your budget every year along with the lottery. But we'll do things like furniture replacements, driver's ed vehicles, flooring replacements, carpet and tile, fire alarm replacements and upgrades, safety and security of schools, so security equipment. About half of our funds that we use each year from the sales tax goes toward technology, computers, iPads, Chromebooks, infrastructure for equipment in our schools. We use it for custodial equipment, transportation equipment, maintenance equipment, HVAC replacements, plumbing replacements, mowers, fencing, lighting, walkways, painting, landscaping, doors, door lock replacements, window replacements, when we purchase activity buses, when we replace PA or sound systems. So that's the things that we use our capital outlay money for. So as you're considering how we fund this project, that's how we use our money now. So this gives you an idea of what funds we have used, what we use it for, and what funds are available. So at this point, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask the board to entertain a discussion about our next steps in what has been presented as a solution for North Davie Middle School and Davie County High School.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hartness. So just so we all understand, based on the information that, okay. You passed out information that I think Commissioner Jones talked about that had come from county staff, and I guess they just pulled this looking at account balances. I guess the way they come up with that. I'm really not exactly sure, but at the end of the day, the lottery funds, there's $561,000 that's not budgeted, not accounted for, that we're going to use, that we've already said we've committed $500 to the new high school, and any other items that you were discussing, the roof and HVAC, I think, the gym floor, I apologize. So there's $561,000 there, and then the school capital outlay, the actual fund balance is $990. Now, what the information that they have over here is explain that one more time, the information that's on here that Mr. Jones talked about last night. They have school capital outlay sales tax actual and then budgeted number. And that is actually the tax that would be collected. I'm not exactly sure. What are they? Do you
I'm not
follow?
exactly sure where they arrived at that. It just
Okay.
says from the county general ledger, but as I checked, and Deborah pulled this together this morning, we anticipate revenue, and we have budgeted revenue of 1.37 million this next school year.
Okay. So we've budgeted what we anticipate to be getting, and there's $990,000 in that fund, which is fund balance.
That is correct.
Okay. Just so we're all on the same page. So, in the numbers that he talked about, we're not talking about $4 million. We're talking about 1.3. But, so I guess where I'll go, I think Dr. Hartness has showed us what we typically use this capital outlay and lottery funds for, and it is to maintain our school facilities and for technology. And I think that was the whole gist of going back to the commissioners to ask them for the money to pay for this. This is outside of normal maintenance, outside of normal paving project, roof replacement. This is something that's completely out of our control. And I think that was the whole idea in going back to the commissioners to ask for this money. Now, I think we're at a place that we need to decide, do we want to go ahead and move forward with these projects before we get a commitment from the commissioners? We have already decided to move forward with Pine Brook, but with the new high school and with North Davie, do we want to do that? They're saying they're going to act in September, or do we want to wait on them? And I think that's the discussion that needs to be had. So I'll open the floor up to any comments or concerns.
When we close everything in with the high school, and we want to clean the air before, when is everything going to be closed in? When is the bottom line for installation for the high school? I know North Davie's going to start in a few weeks, but also with the high school, what?
We're looking at the 1st of November, from the last of
First.
October to the 1st of November.
Last of October, 1st of November. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Spill, what's your turnaround time on ordering and getting that ready and installing it?
6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Okay, here's my concern, and it's exactly what it was with Pine Brook. If we have a problem and the county commissioners say, no, we're not gonna pay for it, or so it would be then up in the air, well, we're gonna fix the problem or not fix the problem. So if we truly have a problem, it seems to me that we need to fix it whether the county commits to paying for it or not. Now, that's just my thinking on it, and that was my thinking with the Pine Brook situation. And the fact is that, I think it was based on what Dr. Hartness has told me, based on what Chairman Fuller's told me, we do have a problem out at Pine Brook, and it was pretty obvious. And so, I guess we could wait on the high school. That seems to not be a problem, but as far as waiting, but if we got the problem of air quality, then we need to address the quality, whether, no matter who pays for it. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. And then at North Davie, the same situation. I mean, I guess we could then wait to after they made the decision in September, but I don't know what, I don't know what that tells the community. That tells the community, so you say you got a problem, but unless you get the money from somewhere, you're refusing to fix it. And that seems to me maybe not be the best way to move forward, because if we truly have a problem, we need to address it.
Well, go ahead.
No, I just want to agree totally with Steve. Whether the commissioners reimburse us or whether they don't, we're going to spend this money and do what's best for our students. So I think we need to just go ahead and say that's what we're going to do.
I have a couple of questions, but need to do it in some sort of order. Dr. Hartness or Deborah first. At the end of the last school year, the two funding banks that could be used for this kind of project, to me, seem to be capital outlay, and I just had this in my head. No, it's all in capital outlay, but the money comes into capital outlay from lottery and/or our allocated money that we set aside for that. At the close of the last school year, what was the balance available left over that didn't get used last year? And do you anticipate at the end of next year having a similar balance? That's my first question.
I think, I mean, I don't want to step in front of anybody, but I think that was what we were saying a second ago. That's kind of what I was trying to get to, working through all these numbers. We have a fund balance in capital outlay of $990,000. And if you look at, and Deborah, please correct me if I'm wrong, and if you look at lottery funding, the lottery funding that we have, or lottery funds that we have, the balance of those funds, $280,000 of the $1.34 million that we have is already approved and allocated for gym floor at Shady Grove and also a roof at William R. Davie. And then $500,000 of that money is the last installment of the $2 million that we agreed to use to pay for the New Davie High. So that puts us at a balance of $561,913. So we've got that plus the $990. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, you're correct.
Okay.
So those two numbers, and I see them on my sheet in yellow, but they don't have a sheet, so that's why I brought it up.
Right.
If you add those two together, that equals a sum of money that was left over out of monies that came to us last year that have not been committed to anything yet. Is that correct?
Not last year, yeah.
It has
Yeah, that-
accumulated to the point.
That's
that
right.
It was left over after last year.
That's right.
So I am sure, I would guess that when the county commissioners looked at our records and our information and saw this request for reimbursement for the three projects, they said, well, why don't you guys use your own money? It's already there. And that's kind of what we were talking about at the meeting last month, that we had enough money to cause payment for the Pine Brook situation so that it would be completely done before school started. And we're on schedule with that, Mr. Spillman? You think it'll
As
be?
of right now, yes.
Okay. I know it was ordered and it's coming in, so we ought to be able to get that done. So my next question in this line, having that financial background, between you and Mr. Moorfield, can you tell me your opinion, which should be the next purchase or next project to be done in order of need? I'm thinking it's North Davie because we've already got folks there, and we'll have more there in several weeks. And if that's the next move, how soon after that would you have to have a commitment to do the project at the new high school?
Well, we're right back. We could, we would, if you adopt the budget amendment tonight, we could do a PO tomorrow and then get North Davie on order. Then it would be 6 to 8 weeks from this week to get North Davie completed, yes.
But we're proposing, if we were to do these, to do them simultaneously. We don't have to do one and then do the other.
Excuse me. How about our regular fund balance? We got, what, 1 point, I'm not talking about the capital outlay fund balance, I'm talking about the one that's tied to our fund balance policy. You know, I think we've talked about this as far as probably that is something, that money is better used for a one-time expense? Is it legal that we can pull money from that and use it for capital outlay? Say if we wanted to take from 2 or 3 different funds and, you know, but there's.
I'm going to yield to our finance officer. I don't believe we can move current expense into capital outlay. And the reason we have the current expense fund balance is when we get into a situation where the state has a reversion or the state has a cut, that fund balance allows us to continue to employ people until we can make the necessary adjustments.
And I'm not saying we need to use it, I'm just saying would that be something that would be available to us if, you know?
I believe so.
You'd have some hoops to jump through. It's possible, but it would require approval of commissioners, it would require a number of steps, and it would take a bit of time.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I mean, that, again, we're trying to, you know, we've moved in a direction trying to at least rebuild, or try to rebuild that fund balance. But I think the point in all of this, I completely agree. There's no question whether, to your point, Steve, that this is needed. It's certainly needed at all 3 facilities. I think the point is, and the whole reason I wanted to bring up the piece about the funding is just so everybody understands, excuse me, everybody understands that these lottery funds and capital outlay funds, what we typically use that money for. And that's the money that we have to do our regular maintenance. That's the reason that we sent this request to the commissioners. Certainly, we can use that money to pay for this. And it's certainly a worthy cause. There's no question about that. I just think that we needed to have the discussion that we're using that money to do this in lieu of doing some of these other things. And I think that's the reason that we need to go to the commissioners and ask for the money. Now, hopefully in September, they will agree to fund this, and we can replenish this money. But that's the only point. That was my point in bringing up the issue about the funding.
Yeah, and I understand that, but I think that's something that probably needs to be shared with the commissioners and the county manager, and, I mean, instead of us, but.
I'm not sure.
How we use this money is what I'm saying. You know, this is what they need to know.
I'll be glad to
Yeah.
send this over to them.
Yeah, it's not gonna be, we're not gonna be the ones to make the vote. They're gonna be the ones to do the voting to decide if they're gonna pay for it or not. So they need to be ones made to have the knowledge of what we use.
Of what we
this
use
money
capital outlay
That was
for
my
money.
point.
Yeah. I understand that. And I think they need to understand, they need the correct numbers as well, be very honest with you. They need to understand that some of the funds that they're showing here in a balance is already designated and appropriated.
I agree, and we can definitely provide this summary to the commissioners for their consideration at their September meeting. And I failed to mention as well, I did make a contact with Tony Gallagher, the gentleman who spoke last night at the commissioners' meeting. He and I spoke last week, and the reason for my call to him was the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, not only do they issue permits and regulate composting and solid waste facilities in North Carolina, but they also provide grants. Both the composting facilities in Davie County have received state funds for equipment to promote composting. So my question to Mr. Gallagher was, if you have monies to promote, do you have any grants in your agency or other state agencies that could help us to fund this issue that has resulted from what you're promoting? And the answer was no. So we're back to where we are, but I wanted you to know that I did ask the question from the state of North Carolina. No.
So, go ahead.
Chad, a while ago, your wording when you were saying that the Board of Commissioners may not be completely or fully aware of, these are the list of the kind of things we use our capital outlay for. And then there was a phrase in there that said, so we're going to be forced to use our money for air quality management instead of doing some things on this list. Did you mean to say that?
Well,
Instead of?
Well, I mean, I guess my point is, Paul, is that if we use some of these funds and they don't reimburse us, then there are some of these things that we normally do that we will not have the funding to do.
And that
That's my only point.
Okay, well, that's why I brought up the two places in yellow, that equals
That's right.
short of
That's right.
1.5 million.
That's right.
That's already here. And in some number of days or weeks, there's going to be additions to that money.
No. What we're saying is, and that's what Dr. Hartness is saying, we're expecting $1.3 million to come in, capital outlay funding to come in the form of sales tax, and we have budgeted for this year $1.3 million.
Okay.
You follow me? And that's the only thing I'm saying. So there's no question, we've got $1,500,000 in fund balance, and what we're saying is we're going to spend 250 of it on these systems.
Here's what, I'm gonna make a motion then that we go ahead and move forward with these two projects. And because I think we've established the need, and, and we don't really have any control over what's gonna happen on the first Monday in September or the second, whenever they meet, but, if it's a problem, we need to fix it, and that's the way I feel, and
Okay.
so I'll make that motion, and then they can figure out how
Okay, yeah, exactly. Okay, all right, that sounds good. So we have a motion on the floor to move forward with the two projects, to go ahead and fund it, and then we'll wait and see what the commissioners do. Do we have a second? We have a second by Mr. Drexler. Do we have any other discussion, any questions or comments?
I just want to ask the question, the total cost for North Davy and the high school, what was that projected to be, just to refresh?
all of it's gonna be around 240, 50, 45.
Was it 245 or 254?
No, the other one was 89. Pine Brook was 89, I think, so it was total.
I'd just like to reiterate what you said as far as us doing what we have control over. You know, and that's what we've got to do. We're sort of forced to take control or do what we have control over. We don't have control over what's outside. We don't have control over a lot of other things, but, so I appreciate your comment.
Absolutely. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Do we have any other discussion? Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we would also now request that you have approved that you would authorize staff to do a budget amendment from available funds to cover the amount of $160,408 for the North Davy Middle School and new high school project.
So we have a request. We have a motion by Mr. Drexler. We have a second by Mr. Ridenhour. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Dr. Hartness. Thank you for the discussion, Board. I appreciate that. I just wanted us to make sure that we all understood where we were headed there. At this time, we're moving on. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr.
We
Hartness.
can't move on yet.
Okay.
Related to this issue, you all have received a couple emails from Mr. Pete Gallons, the owner of the compost facility behind the new Davy High School. And Mr. Gallons is proposing the construction of a joint vegetated buffer along the Gallons Farm and the new high school's northwest property line. I've read over that proposal, and I just want to bring you a recommendation and have you discuss this issue. We talked with Mr. Gallons a couple years ago about his desire to have a berm or to have dirt taken from the high school site and put along that property line, and gave him a couple proposals to look at, and he was not agreeable to any of those proposals at that point in time. At this point in the project, the dirt that is on the site has a place. The dirt that is piled up to the left side of the high school will be used for the final construction of the softball field. The berm that is in the front right corner beside the construction trailer is where it is. It has rock in the middle of it. It's not available to be moved either. So I believe Mr. Gallon's only option of building a berm he would have to bring in dirt from outside. We don't have any dirt available at this point in the project for that type of construction. So just wanted to let you know that we have received that, and if you would like for me to respond on behalf of the board, I can. But if you have any thoughts or discussion about that.
It seems to me that he is making a positive step, I think he's intending to do something beneficial for the school and his property too, as far as aesthetics. But to me, it seems like he's reaching out to try to offer some sort of help. But what he is offering is in fact not helpful. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be an additional cost incurred by the school. And if it is to minimize odors, the folks from the state said building a berm will not address the issues that he has with controlling odors. And they even made it very clear last night in the presentation that both the Gallons property and the Wallace property will be held to the same standards because they're the same type of facility. They can accept the same type of materials. So they'll be held to the same standards of controlling their odors and minimizing those odors to the property line. So if there are other measures that Mr. Gallons would like to put in place, then he's welcome to do that on his own property. But we don't have any resources that are available to help him with that at this point in time.
Have any other comments or questions?
I think we've already tried to address the issues that we have control over. The issues that we don't have control over that the property owners need to address. I appreciate him reaching out, but I think we did try a year ago, 2 years ago, if I recall, some things coming through. But with the cost factor that we have to incur for the inside, I think that's enough.
You have a comment, Mr. Jones?
I was just going to say, I mean, you can respond to him if you're looking for direction from us as a board. I mean, I would say a response would be in order.
And just say, would everybody be agreeable to respond and say, you know, we've received your proposal and I thank you for the intent of trying to solve the problem. We're working on some solutions that currently that we've come up with. So.
You're good at that.
Right. Oh, I don't know that we're gonna. Yeah. I don't know that we're gonna solve the outside problem, but I think that's something that those guys are gonna have to do. So if you want to respond and thank him for reaching out, I think that would be fine. You have any other comments, questions associated with that? Okay. Now we're moving on to public address to the board.
Thank you, Chairman Fuller, and I am sorry to say that because it is the dog days of August, everyone's home washing or playing with their dog, and they're not here to address you. I'm sure we'll have more of an audience in September.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. We always like having a full house and like hearing from the public too. At this time, we're moving on to closed session portion of our meeting, and I will ask for a motion to go into closed session to preserve the attorney-client privilege pursuant to the general statutes that are listed on the agenda to discuss personnel matters protected by state law and general statutes listed on the agenda, and to discuss student matters made confidential by general statutes listed and FERPA. I'll ask for a motion. You have a motion. You have a motion by Mr. Drexler. Do we have a second? Have a second by Ms. Livingood. All in favor? Motion carries 6-0. We're now in closed session.